Hey, what's going on everyone? Joe Menza here. Thank you for joining me for another watercolor painting video. We're using 11 by 15 here, Master's Touch paper. Not expensive paper. It's not the cheapest paper, but it's not expensive. I like it. It's very durable. Now I'm using here a combination of blues. I've got cerulean cobalt and ultramarine blue. And I'm just putting in a wash here. Going a little progressively darker, just coming up with a little sky here. Again, just a combination of those blues. And I'm just going to go ahead and fill all this pretty much in. Using the large Ron Ranson brush. Added a little indigo. Indigo's like a dark purpley blue. I really like it. A matter of fact, I haven't been using as much Payton's gray because I like the indigo so much. Here I'm taking a paper towel kitchen roll if you're in the UK, and I'm just dabbing in some clouds. This is probably the best way that I've found to make realistic clouds, and I've tried a lot of ways. Just dabbing in the shapes. Just roll up your towel and just dab away the paint. Don't dab away too much. You want to dab kind of around and leave the little colors in between. And you can put as many in as you like. I think that will do it here. If you're using like a phthalo blue or something very staining, you might have a hard time lifting it out. So I'm coming in with some indigo here on my brush. Haven't washed my brush. And I'm making a nice mountain shape here. Just putting in the shape. Just little points. Always, when you do a mountain, have, a center point. Don't make, 2 or 3 points that are exact same size. Make different points. And then I'm just going to blend this down in the bottom here using a clean, dry brush. I have multiple brushes. It's not a bad idea because if you want a brush, you want to go from, say, you want to have a brush for lighter colors, brush for darker colors, or maybe you want to have a brush like I do and do some blending. So I'm just going to kind of pull down and just kind of shape these dry here. Now you could leave these like this. I'm going to put some snow on here. Just showing you one way you can do this. You could make these nice, soft mountains. You can put in more layers of mountains if you like. This is just one way to do it. You can lift off a little color. Now I'm taking a little card here. I want to see how this works. Just applying some snow with a plastic card. And not my preferred way, but I thought I'd try it. You can do it this way. I just want to give you some different ideas of things that I've tried. And it's not bad. It's not terrible, but you can try different shapes of cards. But it does work. You can use a plastic knife as well. The plastic putty knife, or you can use metal, but you got to be careful. You don't want to scratch your paper. I've sprayed this with a little water. I'm just going to kind of work this away. I don't really want this to be that strong. And I'll show you, if you do something and it's not kind of working out right, you can just paint it again. When you see me reach down like that, I have a large towel on the floor, and I kind of dab off excess on that big, large, sort of a big, large shower towel. This way I don't worry about getting, water anywhere or anything like that. I'm just going to reshape these mountains here. Just taking that clean brush again and just kind of dabbing that out. I'm going to get out the hair dryer here and dry that so I can put some snow on without disturbing too much down below. Okay, so I'm using the fan brush now. Fan brush, I can get a little bit more control, and I can bring snow down just like that. And if you make kind of a line, it looks more realistic, like the crest side of the mountain. The other option is you can scrape the mountain with a plastic card. Sometimes that can be hit or miss. You can also add a smidge of warmth to it, just a little bit. You can add a little tiny bit of red, or you can add a little tiny bit of yellow, and you can make it so it's not so stark. So I'm painting in the shadow side here with, again, coming back with a little of that indigo. I want more of a hard line there for the shadow, and it looks more realistic to me that way. That indigo has become one of my favorite paints, and the fan brush I really like to use. It's so versatile. So I'm just kind of bringing down, following that edge of where the mountains would be. This one here, I'm just kind of going off imagination, something I kind of had an idea in mind. Coming back with the fan brush, just a little more highlight with the white. This is white gouache, Winsor & Newton. I know sometimes I do use the bleed-proof white, but in this case, I am using gouache. I'm just taking, again, that dry, clean brush and pulling that down a little bit while it's still wet. Just to give it sort of that windswept. I like that windswept effect. Giving the upper part a little bit of a spray here and blending that a little bit. There's some lines here that I'm not really wild about. Just being very careful with it. Just blending up on top. It's a risky move, but if you have a very light touch, you can do a little bit of blending. You can reactivate, and you can do a little bit of blending. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry a little bit. I'm going in with some strong, this is lemon yellow. You can see when it hits that blue, something to think about, the transparency there. It immediately turns green, and that's fine. That's what I wanted. And I've mixed a little bit of indigo, a little bit of sap green in there. I'm just looking for some grassy areas here. Giving it a little spray. I put it on almost right out of the tube, and I like to spray it, and it's as if I'm mixing it on the paper. And there's one thing I like about this paper. I was using a Fabriano called 1294, something like that, and also Strathmore. They tend to kind of smear on the surface. I don't have that issue on this paper. It doesn't look smeared. It blends very nicely. So that's another reason why I've stuck with this paper. You can see that little spray I put on top. It's kind of dripped into the mountains, and I'm actually okay with that. That little bit of run is can be exciting. It can create some things that you didn't expect, and that's one of the enjoyments of watercolor. I know a lot of people do that are artists of watercolor. They do a lot with transparency and very soft uh, with the colors. I'm a lot more bold and stronger with the colors, to the point where people would say, "Oh, you should be painting with acrylic," but acrylic doesn't have that same reaction. Taking the fan brush here, and again, sap green, some indigo, use the colors that you like to make up a pine tree. And if you want your branches, turn your hand back and forth like what I'm doing, and you can make the branches look like they're kind of drooping down a little bit. And you could put as much space. I tend to make mine full. And over here, I think I'll put a couple of pine trees too. You can go up like that and create the stalk, trunk, what have you. And it'll give you something to follow. Okay, so here I'm going to use a fan brush, and you can use it straight up and down or from the side like this. And just by pressing it, it instantly makes a little tree line. So just dot the line here, and that little bit of white will actually mix in with that and make it just a little more faint looking. Okay, I'm taking my clean dry brush. I'm just doing a little blending. Okay, go ahead and work on a couple of trees over here. Is just working on a little from my imagination, this composition here. Again, using the fan brush. Just turning it back and forth. It's a very versatile brush. You can make a lot of trees, foliage. I really like. I have about 3, 4 different sizes of the fan brush. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of cad yellow hue, and I'm putting a little bit in the ground here. Just want to get a little more light in the middle here. Pretty much straight from the tube. Again, just using the fan brush, just blending it in. Okay, need something in the corner here. Just put some foliage in the corner here, just something in the foreground too. Little combination of yellow and some green just to create some forefront foliage. It helps create layers to push everything back. Okay, while this is still wet back here, I'm just going to take my finger and kind of rub in a little of this white. Creates a little bit of a smoky effect. See how it has a little bit of a mist? Now that this upper area is kind of dry too, I'm going to go back and I'm just going to put a little bit more shadow in this mountain area here. Just that it's faded. Just kind of blend in a little bit more shadow. Bring that down just to define those peaks a little bit better. Okay, now I'm going to put a path in here. I'm going to take some burnt sienna, burnt umber, a little combination, and just create a path. Making just like from small all the way in the back and have it come wider as it gets closer to you. Now I'm going to take and add a little bit of white to the brown, and you see it creates just like a creamy color, and blend that together to make our path. Now here I'm just going to define around the area, just going in with some extra foliage and things, and we'll bring the path and the foliage kind of together. While the paint's still wet, I'm just going to scrape in a few little details, little rocks, little twigs and things. Always remember to take your dark colors and anchor little things like rocks to the ground. Now's the point where I go around and I look at what little details I can add just to touch up things here and there in the painting. I gave it a little bit of a spritz with some little water, and I'm kind of drying at the same time. Quick dry there. I didn't show you the whole drying process. And let's see what it looks like with the mat on. That always helps me to make the final details. And as I always say, I always use a crusty mat that's got paint on it already, so I don't mess up a good one until the painting is fully dry. I'm just going to put in some darks now. This is when you go with some of your darker points as things dry and define the edge of the path. Put in a little bit more darker foliage. And I think this one's looking pretty good. sign my name with my white acrylic marker, and let's take a look. Here's the clean mat, and we'll just kind of zoom in here. Take a look at the clouds. I popped in a couple little birds there. A little mist on the mountain, or a nice little path, a little highlighted light area. And that's it. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.